First thing I want to say is I really appreciate you guys turning in your homework on time. It's pretty awesome. Don't want to get emotional or anything, but I sent you out that the questions for I think it was week 2 on hand tools, and it wasn't about the tools. It was questions, what experience do you have and stuff like that. And listen, I've been teaching this class for I think 7 years. Back when we were on semester, I don't think I've mentioned that. So I can tell by the way that you answered these questions that I'm really missing out here on a really incredible class. You guys know that like the chemistry within classes it can change, and I never have a horrible class. I never have a horrible class ever, but there are some that stand out as being exceptional, and this class, I have a feeling from what you guys have been writing, your emails, the way you respond to the questions, that this was going to be one of those exceptional classes, one that I would probably remember for the rest of my life. And so when I went through these questions, I was actually just going to pick a few and not even name anybody, but I've decided to change that, and I went through them. I have them here, and I have some stuff highlighted, and I'm going to go one by one. And I know you're like, oh, I'm not going to sit through this. Well, I guess you don't have to, but I think it's kind of cool. So here we go. Let's see how this goes. So this question comes from John, and or this answer, I should say, comes from John. And let's see here. This is what I want to learn about: how grinding can be done without destroying whatever I'm working on, and overshooting and not making a mistake. Experience. It really is. Use the techniques that I showed you by going slow and not taking a lot off and using the water, and it's a lot of experience. I really hope your pergola turned out well. I work on my house too. I'm actually restoring a 1927 house, and wood windows and everything. Quite a project. I'll be doing that for a while, so I know that must have been really cool. So this is from Brittany. How will we know our grades for each question assignment? You're not. No, you're just not. I told you that if you answer them thoroughly and you turn them in on time, if you do that for the semester, you're going to get an A. I mean, it's just that simple, okay? If you guys really want to know, like if you got like a check plus or a check minus, you got a check plus, all right? Unless you didn't turn it in, then all right. And honestly, I'll just cut straight to the point here. That's if you miss one, I don't care. I care. It's if you start to miss 3, 4, and 5, and then we've got a problem. So I hope that answers your question. And Timothy, will this class cover welding techniques? Yes, it will, but only through lecture. I'm not going to do any welding demonstration. Actually, I'm a horrible welder. I know how to weld all 3 types, which we'll talk about. I can arc weld or stick weld. That's not the right term. I know how to arc weld pretty good, actually. MIG, of course, and TIG. Welding requires a lot of practice, and I simply don't have time to put in that kind of time to practice. And to be quite honest with you, whether it's if I would rather be on a lathe or a mill than welding, I'd rather be on a lathe or a mill. It's not that I don't like welding, I just don't like welding as much as I like machining. All right, so there we go. Oh yeah, I'm going to talk about a little bit about, there's some questions about me in here, so I figure, oh, why not take the time, right? This is from Braulio. I want to learn how to operate milling machines, but with virtual learning, I will have to settle with learning how to approach the machine. making sure how to operate it, and or if it's faulty, maintenance, that type of stuff. Yes, we are going to go through the milling machine extensively. We'll see. And not as much as the lathe, but we are going to, which is another question coming up here. Job opportunities and apprenticeships. Oh, I'm sorry. This is from Ryan. This is a great question. Apprenticeships that can result from apprenticeships that can result from skills and experience gained from taking metalworking in Tech 1600. Okay, and it's going to double on another question later too. So I'm going to wait to tell you the story, but I'm going to tell you that if you were to take some sort of manufacturing engineering job, right, manufacturing engineer, and you have actual hands-on experience, it's going to set you apart from a lot of other people. I have a surprise guest coming. He's a tech graduate, and he's a really good friend of mine. And actually, he's works in civil engineering, but he's an industrial tech graduate. And I'm going to have him talk to you guys. I'll shoot a video with him. Never mind. And he will. I hope he's going to. Yeah, that's going to happen. All right, so look forward to that. That's the inside scoop. And let me tell you, he's a real hustler, okay? I mean, like, he's been through quite a few jobs and knows how to land them, knows how to interview for them, all that. So he will be really, yes, my espresso. He'll be really good resource for you, I'm sure. All right? More welding. This question comes from Jonathan. I want to better understand TIG and MIG. You will. Not in depth, but you will. Safety for welding. I'll go over that. And here's a couple more from Jonathan as well. What are the consequences when you start with the material touching the cutter? Remember how we never start, right? Your material's gonna blow out on you. Just boom, like nuts, and it's gonna, like if it's a saw, it's gonna kick back violently, and it's dangerous. Okay, so I wanted to. That's something from Jonathan. Yes, this is from Miguel, and are we going to be using the milling machine? Yes, we will be using the milling machine. I really like that you have house experience as well. House experience is great experience. I've just mentioned that I'm working on my own house, and I have a kind of a saying for it. It's like, you want to move a toilet? No problem. It's just an immense amount of work, and I'm sure you know. You've laid down some drywall, you put up some drywall, you laid down some piping. You know, it's a lot of work, and it's really gratifying too. All right. This one comes from Francisco. You mentioned when you're using the portable saw, or the skill saw, that the feed must be slow. But what are the consequences to going too slow? Well, two things. Okay, first, with wood, you're going to start generating a lot of heat. We're going to, in a couple weeks, we're going to be talking about like the enemies of the shop, and one of them is heat, the other is vibration. But when you're working with wood, wood will burn. It'll heat up to the point where it starts to burn, not catch fire necessarily, but I'm sure you've all smelled it, and you know that it burns. So if you go too slow, it's going to burn. When you go too slow with metal, you generate lots of heat, you prematurely wear out your cutting tool, and believe it or not, you can do what's called work hardening, and you can work harden your material, but more on that when we talk about different types of metal and heat treatment, etc. All right, Nicholas with the cars. I'm just going to tell you, the guy's got a Datsun 510, and he got it when he was 14. Awesome. I got my first car when I was 13. It was a 1968 Volkswagen Bug. When I completely tore it apart and put it back together without a manual, and it ran. I know. Later had to redo it because I didn't use the to use a manual, and those air-cooled engines are kind of tricky if you don't. But yeah, I eventually got that thing going. That was a lot of fun, and I wrote down here in my notes pics. So, dude, if you don't mind, you send me some pics of what you're doing. That'd be awesome. And I also want it to bring out that Nicholas is working on a show car to bring awareness for cancer. Dude, awesome. That's great. Awesome. Okay. Okay, so I think it's Dolce, and the reason I know that is because I'm Italian. If I'm wrong, I'm very sorry. Excuse me, but I could tell by your last name. So if I'm wrong on that, let me know, and I apologize. In terms of machining class, what are some tools that take the longest to learn? Are there some projects that you recommend? And that question came up quite a bit. Let me go back though to the first question. What takes the longest to learn? Well, the reason why I love machining so much and making things, but primarily with machining, is because you never are done learning. That's the amazing thing about machining. Machining is about, which I've mentioned before, is mostly about problem solving and really being creative on how you're going to hold your material to cut it. A lot of times it's not just as easy as throwing it in the vise or the chuck on the lathe, right? You really got to get creative. You got to be able to see through what kind of what's going to happen to that metal. So when you cut it, is it going to bend a little when you cut it because the forces induce? There's a lot of thinking ahead, a lot of problem solving, and the more experience you have, the easier it gets, but also the more fun it gets and the more complex problems you can start to tackle. I worked with a fellow years ago. He's actually a pretty good friend of mine, but I've made fun of him to his face, so I'm not talking smack here. But he was one of those guys that needed a tool for everything, and he used to drive me crazy. It was like, here, can you make this? Okay, well, we need to order this and this and this and this, and I'm like, come on, man, you can just make the tools yourself, right? You get what I'm saying, all right? Anyway, so okay. Okay, this is from Sergio. Sergio, you are familiar with AutoCAD and SolidWorks. I live in SolidWorks. As a matter of fact, before I shot this video, I got it from my desk from SolidWorks. Awesome. So, you guys, I know remote learning, you don't have access to SolidWorks unless you get it somehow. I'm not saying. And so when we come back, I strongly recommend you get some SolidWorks in. And if you know how to use it, I live in it. Okay, I'm delighted to sit down with you and help you on some advanced techniques in SolidWorks, like surface modeling, things like that. Some assembly stuff that I know a lot of students miss out on here at school because they don't get there. I would be delighted to help you and sit down. So when we come back, for those of you interested, or just getting started in SolidWorks, hit me up. I mean, totally. We'll do it, all right? If you can't take the class. Okay. Here we go. Where is he? How and when, from Sergio, how and when is it necessary to heat treat metal? What happens when metal undergoes heat treatment? We are going to have an entire lecture, not a whole hour, but like a half hour on heat treating metals and different types of metals. What metals are better for heat treating? When you can't cut, when you have to grind, all that information is going to be given to you in heat treat metals. So that's a great question, by the way. Daniela, confident enough, let me go back. I do want to learn new things in this class, obviously, but my main goal is to gain enough knowledge to the point where I am confident. Confident enough to go into a machine shop and know what I'm doing and be familiar with the tools. Well, Daniela, you just nailed it. Confidence is really half of it right there. Knowing and being taught the proper techniques to hold your material and how to select the cutters that are right for the operation, what speeds and feeds to run them out, make you confident. And through some experience, and not a lot, but through some experience, you will be confident and be able to walk into any machine shop, walk up to that machine, put a cutter and your material in, set it up, and make a few cuts just right out of the get without probably any help. Okay, that's what I expect from you if we had normal class. So Daniela, right on, great question. Here's another one from Brian, and he's interested in designing and with a possible career. How is this class going to help me do interior design? Sure, but I feel like making desks and counters, all kinds of stuff, which is really cool. So I told you about having skills and having hands-on skills and knowledge really sets you apart from other applicants in the job field. Because if you only know theory and you don't have any practical know-how, it really sets you apart, okay? And you will be picked over those that don't. So I'm going to tell you a really quick story. A student here graduated 2 years ago, year and a half ago, from ME department, was on the SAE teams. We became fantastic friends. His name is Randy. That's all I'll say. He got a job at Peterbilt. They make the tractor trailers in Texas. All right? Yes. Moved to Texas. Called me, Blake, oh my God, you won't believe what just happened. The machine shop at his job at Peterbilt was backed up and he needed a part made. So he went to his boss, right, you ready for this? And said, well, can I just make it? And no one would ever, that was like, huh? And it was so rare that he was laughed at. And everyone was, and then, supervisor said, this guy wants to make his own, let's watch this. And everyone was laughing at him. He walked in the machine shop, and he made the part in like an hour. And he literally blew everybody away. And he was an overnight sensation and famous at Peterbilt in Texas. And you guys know, it's Peterbilt, right? So that's a pretty amazing story. Yes, I think he got a raise and he got promoted. So that is really awesome. And so there's a real life story just a year and a half ago. Okay, this one comes from Andrew. Different types of finishing techniques and the different types of finishing techniques you have used. We are going to talk about finishing techniques all the way from spray paint, regular brush-on paint, buffing metal, clear coating, how to get that water-like shine. We're going to do that. That was, I know you probably read it, but it was in the syllabus. So yes, I am going to spend a lecture on finishing. And I'll show you how to spray, not show you, but I'll tell you how to be successful spraying lacquer with a color and clear coat, okay? Primer, the whole 9 yards. All right. Andrew also, he says, I know it's something you'll cover in the future, but I'm curious about casting and foundry. Awesome. So that's a great subject. Like how hot it is and how hot the metal is, and we're going to talk all about that. Different metals have different melting points. So if you want to know how hot they get, that's how hot they get. And I'll give you a few examples when we talk about that. That'll be on the same lecture, I think, as the welding. We'll have a welding casting lecture, because they kind of fall under the same, not really, but yeah, they kind of do. They definitely are not like on the machine, you know what I'm saying? So, all right. Alex. Here we go. Here it is. Has CNC training and wants to know more about the manual processes. Okay, so when I gave you the shop tour, or the shop, not shop tour yet, but the overview of the shop, maybe some of you might have said, hey, he doesn't have a CNC machine. Yeah, you're right. And all the machinists out there, when I say this, they think, oh, he's closed-minded. He doesn't. Well, you know what? I don't want one. Down here. I teach the Mastercam workshop here at the school, and I teach the basic introduction to CNC machining here at the school. I do love CNC machines, and I use them, and I use them often. We will continue doing it, I think, but when we have in-person class, yes. So I teach the Mastercam workshop. After you, and I've changed. It's a Mastercam workshop and advanced machining techniques. So we talk about different ways to hold things on the mill, like clamping them down on the table, indexing parts with indicators, lots of indicator work, really precise machining, and we do quite a bit of CNC machining there too. But no, I don't have a CNC machine, and it's because I like to figure out how to do it manually. Yeah, that is, and I think that, like I said, I'm the only machinist here, and when there was another machinist who I will talk about in depth, his name was Dan, and he's a very dear friend of mine, and he taught me oh so much. But after he left, and me being the only one, it's kind of like being the best musician in a band. I'm not the best by any means, but you're not going to learn anything anymore. You know what I mean? And so I really try and push it, and one of the ways that I push it is trying not to use the CNC machine unless I absolutely have to. So yes, you are going to learn all about manual mills and lathes. All right, that's what this class is about. Do you think, same Alex, do you think we'll be able to fully grasp the material taught in this course without being in the lab? Yes and no. I briefly covered it. That's one of the downfalls of this class, is that remote learning, is that there is no hands-on experience. But you will have the knowledge to apply to gain the skill set, and I still have some stuff to figure out, but we'll get there. You know, I'm talking about one-on-one time with me is what I'm talking. But I just can't announce that yet, and we'll just have to figure it out. Okay. Kevin, I spend a lot of time watching DIY projects on home improvement videos. Remodeling my own. I plan to remodel my own home without professional help in the future. Oh man, you're in for a wild ride, let me tell you. But not so much. I watch a lot of do-it-yourself programs as well, not on TV but on YouTube, and a lot. I'm on YouTube every day, whether it's posting for this class. No, I'm kidding. Or no, I'm on YouTube every day, and you need to be careful though. Don't just take the first couple hits. Spend enough time on YouTube to where you know the channel well enough, like Home Renovation, the Canadian guy, he's good. Mike Farrington, I'm not sponsoring anybody, that's not what, but know these people, know who you're watching, okay? My favorite machine shop YouTuber is A-Bomb79. So if you guys want to see some really cool stuff with a super, super nice guy, A-Bomb79. I don't know, I'm not a YouTuber, so, but if I was, I would sponsor him. You know what I mean? I'd put him in my list or whatever. I've really enjoyed him. He's top-notch, fantastic, super awesome dude too. Okay. From Diego. Let's see. What particular jobs? So we talked about I'm going to have Willie come in and do that, but I want to touch on something here. And at first, CNC machining is really exciting, and it is, and it's awesome. It's what I do for not a living, but it's part of what I do. It's definitely the reason why they hired me, which I think is in there. What I want to say, though, is that you're at a university, and if you have your career goals set out to be a CNC machinist, that's fine. But you're at the wrong school. Okay? There's nothing wrong with being a CNC machinist. It's pretty awesome, actually. It's a great job. But I will tell you that there's not a ton of vertical movement, if you know what I mean. There's not a lot of working up your way. There's not a lot of that. And if that's what you want to do, I think that's great, and you should really check out at a community college and get a certificate, because we don't offer that here at the university or in the Cal State system, for that matter. That's a community college situation, and you should investigate that. If you have questions about that, need to know who to talk to, please contact me. I'll be delighted to hook you up with the right people. And at everybody, okay? Like, really. Ismail, thank you for all the really kind words and all the emails that you've sent me. Really made me feel good. Thank you very much. And all right, here it is. If you mess up on a part, let's say you mess up a hole, do you have to start over? In metal, yes. In wood, no. Okay? Metal is not forgiving. Once you go over, you went over. I know, you hear people say, well, you can weld in some, no. I mean, yeah, you can, but no. In metal's not forgiving. Once you mess up, you start over. Wood is a little bit more forgiving. I wouldn't say it's totally forgiving, but it is. You can, if you drill the hole the wrong size, too big, I mean, you can glue in a piece and then re-drill the hole. If something happens, you can match the grain, and all that. So wood's a little bit more forgiving. Yeah. Okay, a really good question. These are all fantastic. I really enjoyed reading all this. Clearly, I printed them out. I mean, I could have just, right? Awesome. So, Kelvin, anything about cars? And let's see. And automatic transmissions. I can't cover automatic transmissions in this class. It's too much. And I would, to prepare for a lecture, I would need to go and read up on them again for months. Research, Kelvin, read about it as much as you can. And if you have questions when we come back, hit me up. But I can't, it's going to be hard to do via email. So when we come back, I'd love to spend time with you. As I mentioned in the beginning of the semester, yes, I love cars. Mostly race cars, though. I'm not interested in the new Lamborghini that just came out. I could care less. All right? Like, totally care less. But I love race cars and everything about them. Suspension, new sequential transmission. I mean, the whole, I love it all. So yeah. All right, let's see here. Leslie. Awesome. The one flute drill bit, and that was a question on another one too, was called a countersink. We'll talk more about that. It's not really for drilling a hole. Remember, it's for the angles. So like my arms are the hole. It's for the angles. It's called a countersink. Okay. And we'll talk about countersinking, counterboring, all different types of fasteners and things like that too very soon. And do I have any tips on a wall project? And I understand, I'm not going to go over what you're doing, but I understand what you're doing. And I want to touch on it because someone else had a similar question. Is make sure that you find the studs in your wall and screw whatever your supports are in your table into the studs of the wall. Okay? Very important. And there was a drywall question on here too about holes in a drywall. You need to use a drywall anchor. And it's a plastic anchor. And it has like ridges on it. And then you drill a hole. You push that in. And then the screw goes inside that. And there's the screw, okay? And it's called a drywall anchor. And they are available at any home improvement store. Okay, last one. See, 30 minutes, not bad. Tamara, more comfortable and hands-on experience, and it will happen. It will happen. And of all the topics we are learning in this class, which one would you say is your favorite? Well, I've mentioned that I'm particularly fond of the lathe, and I'm going to take just one moment here. I'm not going to spend much more time, but and it corresponds to another question someone asked. I forgot who it was, and I apologize. Why do this? And what's my favorite thing to do? I'm just going to tell you. My favorite thing to do is to do, well, my absolute favorite thing to do is do something that's never been done before. That's my favorite thing to do. But that doesn't happen quite all the time, maybe once a year. And what I like to do is I like to do all the research. I like to design it, and I like to make it. I like to assemble it. I like parts to break and redesign and then remake the parts that broke and have a fully functional assembly that does something. Not necessarily something that really matters, but moving parts, that kind of stuff. And I love doing research as well. Some of my past projects, I've made really high-grade, upscale record players, turntables. They weigh over 100 pounds. I've designed the whole thing and made it entirely from scratch. Actually, the list is quite extensive, but that's what I really love to do. And the other question about myself that was asked is how did I get into teaching machine shop? Well, I made instruments and played guitar professionally for a long time, and I got tired of eating IKEA hot dogs and seeing if I was going to make it through the month. So I went back to school and thought that I was going to be a high school industrial arts teacher, and it turned out that the bureaucracy at the school level I'm not patient enough for, if you get what I'm saying. I can't. So when I was at school here at Cal State LA as a student, they offered me a job, and I felt that it was, at the time, and I still do, I thought, wow, this is great. I can, instead of having my own class, even though I have machine shop class now, I can teach. I can pass on what I know and what I've learned, and which is really what I want to do. And at the same time, I'm able to make stuff and be in the shop and work with other people and learn. And so that is a little bit about where that came from. And then they offered me, they said, hey, would you teach machine shop? And I said, absolutely, I would. And I also taught SolidWorks too. But when we went to semesters, I can only teach one class a semester, so I chose to teach machine shop. And we offer that both semesters, so that's how that goes. So that was really cool. Sorry it was so long, 35 minutes. That was awesome. I really do wish that we had in-person class. I think this class would have been magic. And any more questions, any more comments, you always are welcome to email me, you know that. So see you soon. Bye.